Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the Union Federation podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network and the BQN Networks. Of course, this is the show that talks about everything that's happening in the world of Star Trek and the Orville. And as we continue on, it is our last ride of Discovery as we are in the fifth and final season. And we're getting closer to the end as we are covering this week, episode 7, Erigah. I can never pronounce that word, so forgive me. But luckily, I do have some people with me to help me make some proper pronunciations for this week's episode. So first and foremost, let me introduce our lovely science officer, Queen of the Phasers, Miss Haley Stoddard.
Hello, I am armed and ready and fabulous.
And
because I have to be.
So glad you are, and you are fabulous. But also joining us, she is the holographic captain, ship's counselor. She might know a thing or two about counseling and beta Zoe, his beta Z, and things like that. And just, she always has the best Romulan ale. It is, of course, the spectacular Amy Nelson.
Hello.
And finally, we have a full crew complement this week because finally back from sabbatical. He was hanging upside down a lot. He was down under. I don't know how that all works and things like that. There's time travel. I mean, the trip he took covers everything that's happened in every season of Discovery, basically. Back from the land down under after spending time with, of course, the lovely Erin, his beautiful wife, the one and only co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, my brother from another mother, top-notch security officer, Kevin Reitzel.
Top notch. I don't know about that. And I apologize, Amy, for letting that weird Betazoid gift box get to you. There was some funny stuff in there. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin, just first and foremost, so you properly know, as being gone as long as sabbatical, we saved the P corner cleaning for you this week.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was looking forward to that. Nothing like 14 and a half hours on a plane, get ready to get off and clean that P corner. Yes.
Highlight of the week, but you know what, we've got a great show for you this week as we are continuing our Star Trek Discovery breakdown. It's going to be a lot of fun, guys. Before we get started with any of that, though, Kevin, you have been gone. What we know you did a little Discovery rewatch catch up here when you got back. So my question for you is where are you at now with Discovery now that we are into this season and you are caught up?
Yes. So I didn't have time to watch it when I was in Melbourne, Australia. Because obviously my wife and I have stuff that we watch together, the TWs, the together watches, and we went out a lot too and saw movies and did some marathons, and it was a lot of fun. One of the highlights was seeing Terminator, the original Terminator, on a big screen to a live orchestra. And if you know the familiar music of Terminator, it's pretty intense, and it was great because you hear that don't, it's like the Terminator theme, and it was great. There's these gigantic drums and these girls that were just banging it along with the rest of the group. So no time to watch Star Trek Discovery, so I had to wait till I got back, and I did catch up a couple days ago. I did a little marathon. And I think the last one, of course, if I remember, was it was the first one I started was Face the Strange. I did that one to get caught up there. And then, of course, it was Mirrors, Whistle Speak, and then, of course, the new one, Erigah, if I'm pronouncing that right. And it overall, I think the Mirrors episode was probably one of my favorites. The Face the Strange, though, I really liked the time loop thing, Kyle. And as you know, on Culture Clash, we've been covering time travel movies, and it was nice to kind of get this time loop thing going on, and seeing different parts of what was happening on the ship during certain eras of what we've seen in previous seasons. And I thought there was a really nice moment between Stamets and I'm forgetting the new first officer's name. Anybody?
Rayner.
Thank you, Rayner. There was a really good moment between those two where Rayner's, trying to understand the crew a little bit. And I kind of choked up a little bit because, they were there for each other. But I thought it was kind of funny, too, during that episode when they had to convince the past crew members that they were on this important mission. and Rayner does this kind of breakdown of everyone on the bridge and what they're about. And I felt like I learned more about the Discovery crew with just that one scene that Rayner had. Maybe just because I can't remember everything that's happened, but also the other characters on that bridge. We've talked about it so many times. We'd love them to get a little more action. And not just kind of every now and then we learn a little something about it. So I kind of giggled to myself during that scene. The episode I could not stand was Whistle Speak. Sorry, I don't need to see a really another pre-warp religious colony, and then you have to go through a challenge to do something. And I'll be honest with you, I started to just tune out. Couldn't stand it. Just couldn't stand it. Kept trucking up through until a new episode, and I enjoyed the recent episode a lot more. But every now and then, you know what I'm talking about? Those pre-warp, people that they meet in episodes, and they're religious fanatics, and they got to try to convince them otherwise, or infiltrate. We've been there before, Trekkies. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway,
wait,
I'm caught up.
Kevin, I was just gonna say we did a whole episode in Whistle Speak. We were gonna make you do it this week.
that to me was just a horrible episode, and sorry, just my take.
Now that we are caught up, it is time to move forward and talk about the latest episode of Star Trek Discovery. And this one, I think it took a little bit of a level up. So with that, spoiler alerts abound. Let us warp out into our first away mission. Okay, guys, away mission number 1 for the latest episode of Star Trek Discovery, Erigah. Blood, it's lots of blood. It's a little creepy, but
Blood oath.
Yep, blood oath. There we go. But we can't get into it if we don't talk about the episode. I have the Admiral's Log episode synopsis here. I'm just going to ask the crew who is up for volunteering for the episode.
I'll do it.
Kevin, you've been away. I think your vocal cords well rested, so go for it, my friend.
Let's see if I can do this. Okay, Admiral's Log for Erigah. All right, blood oath. Is that what it means? Blood oath.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, here we go. Culber attempts to treat Locke, who was injured in the Enterprise confrontation, but is unfamiliar with Breen physiology. Primarch Rune, the leader of the Breen faction, arrives at Federation headquarters to retrieve Locke, who reveals that he is Rune's nephew and a direct descendant of the former Breen Emperor. Rune wishes to use Locke to legitimize his own claim to the throne. Rayner reveals his past as a survivor of the Breen occupation that killed his entire family. Burnham uses this information to convince Rune that taking Locke would cause further conflict with other Breen factions. Locke overdoses in a failed attempt to help Maul escape custody. Breen medics help him at Burnham's request, but Locke dies and Rune declares war on the Federation. Maul reveals to him their research for the progenitor's technology, which she hopes can be used to resurrect Locke. Rune takes her with him, putting Discovery in a race with the Breen to find the technology. Stamets, Book, Tilly, Adira, and engineer Jet Reno determine that the next clue points to the Eternal Gallery and Archive in the Badlands region of space.
Very well done, sir. Your vocal cords are definitely sounding well rested. So, Amy, you said in our chat how much you love this week's episode, so I'm going to let you take the first crack at what your thoughts were.
Okay. You know what? I've been a little down on the previous 2 episodes. This one, I was enthralled from beginning to end. I thought the pacing was so perfect. It wasn't too fast. It wasn't too slow. Every storyline, we got progression. So like we're moving along. I feel like it was just, we got the pieces, we got Maul and Locke, we got Discovery, we got Rayner fixing things, we've got Culber working on things like Stamets and engineering, like everything was so good. Reno, we get Rachel Antrell, Commander Non. Like, so exciting to have her back. Like, it just was so good. I really enjoyed this episode.
Haley, what about you? What were your initial thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Amy. I think this was a really well done episode. And I don't feel like she said, that it was rushed necessarily. And I feel like from compared to previous seasons, we've only got a few episodes left. We've got 3. And while, again, it's kind of leaving everything up to the end, I don't feel that stress about it. Like I have before. And granted, we still have 3 episodes to go. So I still could end up getting stressed at some point that like some storyline isn't going to be completed. But they also haven't necessarily introduced new storylines, which has kind of been nice. Because while yes, the potential war with the Breen could be an introduction of a new storyline. I mean, we've kind of had like tiffs with them anyway, so I don't feel like that's necessarily inserting a new storyline into Star Trek lore as it is. So I'm not feeling that anticipatory stress that I have in past seasons. The interactions were really well done. All the scenes were really well done. Holy crap, that ship is huge. And so, yeah, overall, I think it was a really well done episode.
Mr. Reitzel, what about you?
Star Trek, when you're green, you make good villains. You know, Romulans are great villains for a long time. And
Borg green.
What's that?
Borg or green?
Green lights, yeah. I mean, it's a little scary and spooky. And I remember that one Deep Space Nine episode. I forgot who was in jail together, but there was like a brain sitting in the jail cell, and I remember who was trying to get out. I don't know if it was
Galron. No, it was Martok. It was Worf.
That's right.
It was no. Well, I mean, there were several times. It was Garrick.
Yes, that's right, Garrick
and Bashir.
But the brain was sitting there just looking menacing, and you're kind of curious like who the brain were. And I don't remember the line that Raynar says about what Romulan said about Breen. That was brought up from, I think, that Deep Space Nine or TNG episode about not trusting them. I forget the line, but I was just like, yeah, I remember that. And I love that we're getting this culture with them now. And that there's a throne, and there's what was it? Maul knows that, hey, we're married. I got married to Locke, so now that throws a wrench in their plans as well. Is she now part heir? So I love that we're getting this thing, and that they are. It's funny because you think in the beginning of this season that Locke and Maul are the big bads, but they become sympathetic and you're kind of rooting for them. Mm-hmm. And because you got the backstory of them, which I was going like, oh, and her hair's longer too. And, and then you're getting like, that's my uncle, that's why I didn't kill him. And you learn why you didn't kill him in this episode. And it's just like, it takes Breen society and culture is kind of pulling from all of these other cultures we've seen throughout science fiction and storytelling in general. But I like that they're kind of pulling these aspects of it and flushing out these guys more. And I was wondering if we were ever going to get that. And it's nice that Discovery tapped into that.
It's nice that they tapped into this, long-standing tradition of who's going to be the heir and who's fighting over power, because that's throughout history, throughout our history. So it makes it relatable and understandable that, the ruler dies and, well, this person claims they're an heir, but then there's the uncles, and are they in charge until a certain age when this person can take over? And so that makes it really relatable and nice to see.
Yeah.
I really like the episode too. I agree. The pacing was very well done on it. One of the things I really feel like what they're doing with Discovery with this final season, because to me, I am feeling a little bit, unlike you, Haley, I am feeling like we got a lot to resolve in just a few more episodes. And I just wonder if part of this season of Discovery is setting up things for the Starfleet Academy show to kind of be a continuation of some of these storylines that might carry over, because it just feels that way. I think.
Wait. Remind me, is the Starfleet Academy supposed to take place in the same time frame?
That is what. Yes.
Okay, so they're going to use that Starfleet space, and it's going to take place during Discovery's 900 years in the future, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because
That's
Tilly's there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
probably Admiral Vance.
Yeah. At least Amy hopes.
I'd like to borrow Admiral Vance for a couple of months shooting on the new Highlander film, if that's possible. I need a Ramirez, and he's my first choice.
I think it's very interesting, the political dynamics they're setting up. I just, again, in the Discovery aspect of those, I just can't see where they can wrap this all up in a bow for what's going to be a series finale.
We ask that of Discovery all the time, and I'm at the point right now. I don't know. I don't care. I'm just gonna want to see how it ends.
No, I really feel that this season is different. I feel like we are in a really good spot. We have one more piece of the puzzle to figure out. All we need is Locke, Maul to resolve that. Whoever's going to take control, that's an easy fix.
Question came to my mind. I want to ask you guys this question. So once you're right, Amy. The next episode they can put it together, and then the ramifications of doing that can happen in the last couple episodes.
Very well placed compared to previous seasons.
I want to throw out a possible what if thing here, because obviously we had and if I'm forgetting details, keep in mind I watched them all back to back, and so sometimes you can kind of forget things. The ISS Enterprise that they found, and I love the fact that one character on the bridge was able to, in mention at least, take a look at it. But so this is obviously the ISS thing. So if this thing is put together, Locke thinks that, or Maul thinks that it could help Locke. Obviously, it has some type of power. Does it have time travel abilities?
I think it has basically whatever abilities it needs.
Dimensional shifting. I mean, alternate reality.
We're talking about basically things that create life. So who knows what?
I mean, could Discovery use it to? They want to go back to their time frame. I mean, questions started coming up on this. How powerful this thing is, and why this guy split it up because if it's little, it's not Horgon or anything, but it's just like I have questions on this thing now, and I'm kind of curious to see what they're going to do with it.
I think that's one of the big questions, and I have one more quick question for you guys, because I'm starting to notice it for me. I am really missing Saru.
Mm-hmm.
I was really hoping we'd get him back in this week's episode.
Why are they writing him off for a few episodes? Is the actor not available?
Doug Jones' availability, because they weren't a lot of times they were filming this, they weren't sure if it was the final season or not.
Right.
So
hey Kyle, with your feeling like that they aren't going to have everything wrapped up, are you talking about like all of like the little nuance things, like with the characters, like with Dr. Culber? I think it's some of the nuance thing, and
I think it's some of that, but I also just think that this whatever's going on with the Breen could easily carry on to another show.
Sorry, go ahead. I had another topic I wanted to just bring up real quick.
But I mean, that's just kind of my feeling on it, is that the Breen threat could be something that lingers on into Starfleet Academy.
Yeah.
Gotcha. When I was rewatching, marathoning these last few episodes, I think new Trek, and I'm going to go new Star Wars since the Disney acquisition of Star Wars. One of my big complaints with the acquisition of Star Wars is they don't do romance anymore. There's no romance in Star Wars. And I'm kind of starting to feel I need to see a little more of that in Star Trek. It's teased obviously with Michael and Book. We see things there, but not since our 90s Trek, pretty much, in 60s and 80s Trek and Enterprise. I'm trying to remember what was there, but Amy, Am I missing something?
Yeah.
Help me out here.
Saru and Tarina, Book and Burnham, Maul and Locke.
Not
Culber
seeing
and Stamets.
enough affection with actual making out and kissing and doing that type of thing. It's too family ABC Family Night G. Okay.
Oh, Culber
I mean, I'm sorry. We grew up with Riker. Okay. We grew up with Kirk. And I love the stuff that we got to see with Cisco and what's her name, and then also in Voyager. I mean, we got to actually see this stuff longer, and we got to see more intimate moments with these people. And right now, it's really come on, Book's taking his shirt off, looking hot as hell, and all she's just sitting there going, gotta go.
Here's a little
come
kiss.
on, slap that ass and kiss him, man, before you take off. Something, you know. I am missing major romance in Star Trek.
I think honestly that part of that is because of the shorter seasons. They don't have as much time to develop those things as much. So
I think part of it is Kevin's spending a lot of time with his wife.
There you go. There you go.
It was before my trip, but I'm, it's like with Star Wars too. There's no romance in Star Wars at all anymore. And it's I don't know if it's just a sign of the times and because of the shorter episodes and stuff like that, but it's something I want to see in Star Trek more. I want to see a little more romance and show the affection a lot more. I don't show suggestions anymore and little taps on the hands and little pecks on the cheek. Come on, show your love. Let's go, Trek.
No, I agree with you. And I think just because it's sci-fi doesn't mean that we don't have drama, that we don't have these interpersonal relationships, these, moments and passionate scenes. I mean, not that we need that much passion, but definitely show it because Star Trek is not straight sci-fi. This is a drama show with science fiction.
Part of it too was when you saw chemistry between two cast members, you had 22 episodes to then develop that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you guys just said, you only have 10 episodes, and they're already written out, so you don't have time to go, oh, wait a minute. Maybe we should have had those people kiss or hang out a little bit more. I don't have time to do that anymore. But anyway, still a pet peeve of mine.
Well, with that, as Kevin just writes the next Hallmark Star Trek film.
Those end up in a dry kiss, not the same.
Yeah. We're going to transport into a little Star Trek trivia. Okay, guys, I found a few Easter eggs and trivia for this week's episode that I found a little interesting. Of course, we saw the return of Non.
Can I read this one?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, because I was so happy to see her, and I was like, she was a little rude to Book, but when she recounted, like, you did this, Mr. Booker, and you did this, you were firing a, bomb at us. I'm not going to trust you. So I really enjoyed seeing her. So at the top of the episode, we get the first appearance of Rachel Ancherl as Non since season 4, episode Rubicon. Now, Non's journey is unique within Star Trek and Discovery specifically. Originally a part of the crew of the USS Enterprise under Pike, Non joined the Discovery in season 2 during the search for the Red Angel. She stayed with the crew, remember, because of Irium, and jumped to the 23rd century, from the 23rd century, and now lives on the 32nd century. Non is from Barzan 2, a planet established in the TNG episode The Price.
That's when she lost her skills, right? Beta Z skills, is that right? Am I remembering that right? Is that The Price?
No, that's the
Which one was
episode
that
with the wormhole that they was collapsing and they had all the people bartering to be able to have
thank
the wormhole.
You.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. But Troy did play a role in The Price because
that's right. Yeah.
That creepy.
Yeah. Haley, you want to read the next from the databases?
Yes. The Dominion War medical research. Woo-woo. Culber says he's doing a deep dive into Dominion War medical research in order to learn more about the Breen, noting we don't know much about Breen physiology. This is accurate since, although the Breen appeared for the first time in Deep Space Nine, they never took their helmets off in that series. Culber's deep dive into Dominion War research is also interesting in light of Star Trek Picard Season 3. It was in that season that we learned Starfleet was secretly experimenting on changelings. Did Culber stumble on any of that research? It's kind of interesting. I mean, all the stuff that we found out about different things at that point because of the Dominion War. So, fascinating.
Kevin, you want to tell us why we should never turn your back on a Breen?
Oh yeah, here's what I was referring to. Yeah, quote: "Never turn your back on a Breen." Raynar reminds President Trina of the Romulan saying, "Never turn your back on a Breen." This comes from the DS9 episode By Inferno's Light, and was uttered by an unnamed Romulan prisoner. Although Tarina is seemingly Vulcan, the Vulcans and Romulans are essentially the same people in the time of discovery. As revealed in Season 3's Unification 3, all Vulcans and Romulans lived together on the planet Navarre, previously known as the planet Vulcan.
It's funny is because even this says it, if you know your Star Trek, you know that they are they split anyway. So it's nothing new to most of us that Vulcans and Romulans are essentially the same race. Come on, now, people.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the Breen attack on the Federation, because in this episode, we're reminded that the last time the Breen paid a visit to the Federation, they destroyed an entire city. This references the Deep Space Nine episode, The Changing Face of Evil, in which the Breen attack Starfleet headquarters on Earth directly and nearly destroy all of San Francisco. Most of the city was rebuilt by the time the Picard flashbacks in season 1 of that series, and certainly is fully rebuilt by seasons 2 and 3 of Picard. But it seems like the Federation has not had a direct battle with the Breen in Federation space since the DS9 era. Now, Amy, I feel like this next piece of trivia has your name on it.
Thank you. Yes. So we learn in this episode that the next piece of the progenitor puzzle is a book called Labyrinths of the Mind, a Betazoid manuscript written by Dr. Marina Derricks. Marina is, I'm not even saying almost. Marina is certainly a reference to Marina Sirtis, the beloved actress who has played the half Betazoid character Deanna Troi in The Next Generation and Picard, and a few cameos in Voyager and the Enterprise finale, which we cannot forget. Now, the book, Labyrinths of the Mind, was written in 2371, which is the same year that the USS Voyager left Space Station Deep Space Nine for the Badlands. It's also the same year that Thomas Riker stole the USS Defiant from the same station. It's also the year that the USS Enterprise D crash landed its saucer section on Viridian 3 in Star Trek Generations, which also means it's the same year that a time-displaced captain, James T. Kirk, was killed. That is a very big year, 2371.
I love it when Thomas Riker takes off his Riker, cap the beard to show he's evil because he's just got the goatee. He takes off that
his
beard.
sideburns.
That's right. He took off the sideburns.
Well, and last but not least, we got to have a little fun here because we're talking Seven of Limes. Reno mentions a cocktail, Seven of Limes. This can only be a reference to Seven of Nine, the former Borg drone turned Fenris Ranger and Starfleet captain. Because Discovery is set several centuries beyond Picard Season 3, we can only assume that Reno and the crew now have knowledge of events well beyond the early 2400s. Kevin?
I'd like to say something about Janet Reno. We were talking about this before we got on mic, and I just want to throw it out there that I think Janet Reno deserves her own show, and she's been displaced before. I love the fact we learned a little bit more about what she's done, even bartending. And I think it would be great if somehow she were to time travel back to either where she came from or in my I would love to see her post Picard TNG era. Can you imagine her there? Kevin, maybe even hanging out with Seven of Nine, doing having a little stint on the new Enterprise or something. I don't know. I need more Janet Reno. She is my favorite character on Star Trek Discovery.
Okay, Kevin. Just want to say that as interesting as it would be with Janet Reno, I think it's even more interesting with Jet Reno.
Did I say Janet?
Yeah.
That reminds me of the Saturday Night Live Janet Reno dance thing that Will Ferrell did. Yes, Jet Reno.
Now I'm picturing Janet Reno in Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I know, right?
We are the weirdest ship in the fleet, ladies and gentlemen.
I need the Jet Reno dance hour. That's what I need.
think I'm the only one that's actually got any alcohol, and I'm completely fine.
Okay, guys, let's get into our topics, our main topics for this away mission, and our main topics for the show. And guys, first and foremost, let's start off with the Breen. Are they the new Borg? Are they the new big threat to the Federation that could become a major threat throughout Star Trek? A lot of people have been asking this in social media. That's why I bring it up on the show. What do you guys think about what the Breen could possibly be? Are they the next big villain? Amy, you're shaking your head.
No, I don't think so. And I think Discovery finally is like dialed things back. The Breen is not going to be the big baggie, in part because they're already factioned. Like they're, Starfleet is able to pit one faction against the other. So the fact that they're not united and coming for the Federation, no, they're still got their little tiffs. So they are a foe, they are an enemy, but they're not the big super. I mean, yes, we can have stuff further down the line, but I'm glad they're not the hyperbole, sort of how the Borg was that was going to destroy everything. We don't need that. We need a good enemy. This is a good enemy.
Haley?
So I agree with Amy, and I'm going to throw in, because I'm watching through Enterprise and whatnot. They, like Amy said, right now the Breen are like pre-TOS Klingons. They are infighting, and they're not under one person to kind of have the say of everything. And so it's more likely, while they're doing this infighting and fighting each other, yes, they are threatening and scary, because obviously their tech is really, really up there. I mean, when that ship came, it was just like, holy crap, huge. Like, and that's just one. Imagine, like, who knows how many more, right? So I think currently they are scary and they are a threat, but they're more a threat to each other until they all come under one ruler, or they decide, like, each faction sends somebody and they create like a little coalition that's in charge. So later on down the road, I think for, some future show, that is a threat for sure. And really, probably kind of really the only one we have left now at this point, at least 900 years in the future, because it seems like everybody else we've just taken care of. So unless there's like some other random weird threat that's out there still that they could pluck from the nethers of our brains in Star Trek. But
still have Orions? I mean, they're out there.
Yeah, but I think because
you said the Orions?
Yeah.
They've been so like... The Syndicate kind of got taken down again. They'd have to build everything back up to where it would be.
Yeah, they're factioned as well. Yeah.
And I think that they're even more factioned than the Breen are in what we get in this episode, learning kind of about all their infighting. So that is my take on it. Also, and I don't know if we'll get to it. Well, we're going to get to it. Never mind.
Kevin, I have a question for you. Yeah. As big as that Breen dreadnought appears to be, you think it can go like Spaceball 1 and go plaid?
Ridiculous speed, yeah. I was trying to actually think about this and remind me, guys, remember the big Romulan ship that came in that was introduced in the Kelvin Star Trek timeline? That thing was huge, wasn't that?
Oh yeah, the one Nero ship.
Yeah, Nero ship.
And that's a dreadnought class. Wasn't it?
I can't remember, but I was trying when I was looking at this ship, going like, "Okay, that's big. Is it as big as Nero ship?" I was trying to remember that because I haven't watched it recently, but I was getting that kind of vibe. And of course, it's green and scary. So,
Oh no,
But
the bad ship was a dreadnought. Sorry.
yeah. But that's what I was thinking. But yeah, I'm glad. Like I said earlier, I'm just glad they're getting flushed out. I think that I'm very curious to see what happens to Maul regarding this, because I'm assuming her story is not over yet, because we've had this wonderful Bonnie and Clyde situation with Locke and Maul, which I like, and we've had backstory. We had an episode of backstory, which is great, and showing that they really cared and love each other. And so. I'm very curious to see if the Breen are also going to join this chase now, that since she spilled the beans on it, and because I don't really think Locke and Maul cared about what this did. They just wanted to be free and pay off their debts. Kind of reminds me like Han Solo, just want to get out and be free and not have everyone looking over their shoulder. And unfortunately, Locke is presumably dead, and so we'll see.
I think what's interesting about this is because we know we got Starfleet Academy coming. We don't know what else is planned for Star Trek shows outside of Academy right now in Strange New Worlds. So I think the Breen could be just as interesting a villain. I put them at like the Cardassian kind of level, where they have that potential to be really interesting because of their own political infighting, and because this isn't anywhere near as strong as a Federation now as it once was, as it's trying to grow itself. I think it makes it more of a threat to the Federation, and you just look at the Dreadnought and you're like, yeah, that's just not.
It's when you said political infighting, it made me think of like, okay, Klingons, they had their political infighting. Cardassians, political infighting. Romulans, no political infighting. They just kill each other too quickly and then take over.
But it's still considered political infighting.
The Tal Shiar.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but you see how quickly they are to turn on each other and kill each other.
Yeah, you're right.
The Face of the Enemy Deanna episode, it was just like,
That's because they have no honor.
It's true.
Yes, exactly.
Except for that one in the one Star Trek movie played by Dina. What's her name? Dina Meyer.
Yes, in Nemesis.
That Romulan fought with honor.
Well, guys, that brings us to our next topic. The clue was still the mission. Obviously, even though it felt like it was kind of a little bit of a secondary story this week because of everything going on with Maul and Locke and the Breen, a lot of fun they had with the clue this week, getting quite the interesting Three Musketeers together with Tilly, Jet, and Adira.
You mean Janet Reno?
Yeah, Janet Reno. That's right. Guys, Haley, I'll start with you. What did you think of? I don't want to call it the B story because it's still like the main thing, and they made such a point of the clue is still the mission. It takes priority over everything else. But it was a little bit more fun than what they were doing it with this week than what they had been with some of these clues.
Yeah. I liked that it was almost as perplexing as the water clue, right? They know that they have this thing, but they don't know exactly like where it came from or where they're supposed to go next. And, this mission and discovering, I think more so is exciting of like what each clue reveals and who it pulls together as far as our crew goes to figure it out, and learning, Jet and learning about Jet. Like, oh yeah, I did this. Yeah, I was a smuggler, I guess you could call it that, and I did bartending and I did this. And I like that because so many of our Starfleet personnel, they're, Starfleet to the core. They, went to school, and once they got done with school, they went off to Starfleet. They knew that that's what they wanted to do. And some people nowadays, that's what they want to do. They graduate high school and they join the military because that's what they want to do. And they know that that's what they want to do. Or they become, a police officer or fireman. And I like that she kind of wandered and she wasn't quite sure. As she said, I wasn't sure I wanted to fully commit to Starfleet. And I like this aspect because it shows that you can reinvent yourself. And it doesn't matter how old you are. You can always reinvent yourself. She talks about, hey, if this doesn't pan out, I'll reinvent myself again. And I like that idea. I think that's wonderful. It was nice to see Book and Stamets come together, and Book coming to Stamets of all people, like, hey, put me to use. I'm useless. And until we start fighting the Breen, I need to do something. And that ultimately it ended up being his empathic ability that was able to understand what this clue really fully meant and how they could find out what they need to find out, right? Also, it's interesting they're going to the Badlands. And how they're going to portray the Badlands and make the Badlands look post Deep Space Nine, I'm kind of intrigued.
Kevin,
I might find some Maquis, destruction old ships there.
Kevin, are we sure Jet doesn't have a cousin in a long, faraway galaxy named Han?
Okay, so I love this scene between these three, Adira, Jet, and Tilly. But I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to defend Jet here. Okay, she basically says what's up and tells them what's going on, and mentions the library card, mentions this museum or artifact place that moves, and then Adira and Tilly take that up the ladder, and then they start working and everything. Does Jet get any love to the command? Say, oh, Jet came up with this idea and gave us this lead. I was kind of starting to think about that. I'm like, or is Jet just going to be down there in her area and just kind of like be the wise, like, I'm going to give you all the stuff I need or what you're going to need, and you're going to kind of take it and then run with it, sort of thing. So that's what was kind of like going through my mind. I was like, I need to see Jet up on the bridge a little bit more. It was nice to see Adira, by the way, come over her fear a little bit, and she's kind of getting thrown into the mix there. And I like that Raynar kind of encouraged that. In was it the previous episode or was it this one? I can't remember.
It was
the
previous one. Yeah. I love seeing the character development of Raynar there, but it was nice to see these three together and just kind of hash out what needs to be done. And it was like some marks that were on one of the pieces that I think Jet referred to as it was to lead to the next clue. Am I remembering that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, anyway.
I will say Jet is kind of curmudgeonly and likes to tinker. I think being put on the bridge is something that Jet wouldn't like.
Just leave her alone. Let her do her thing.
Yeah.
Unless she had some chips, So.
Yeah.
Or some limes. But Amy, what about you? What do you think of this aspect?
Yeah, just to go off, Kevin, what you were saying, you said really a lot of good things. I like Jet Reno. She reminds me a lot of like Miles O'Brien, because Miles was always doing something somewhere. He was walking and going somewhere, and she's like, all right, I've got to do and did all this techno babble, but she's like the busy one. Yeah. And I would love to see that more of like, what's Bryce doing? I don't know what he does on the bridge, like communications, but like, what is he doing? Like, I loved hearing literally what she was doing, because my mind, those logistics make it seem real. And I was like, oh my gosh, this person, she is working and this ship is running because of Jet Reno.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. No, you were going to finish. Okay. I just want to mention, she reminds me of that employee that, and this is the opposite of what I'm going to talk about. You, if you've worked with enough people throughout your life, there's people that can't talk and work at the same time.
Right.
They have to stop everything to talk about something or tell their story or what they did over the weekend. And I love Jet. Jet is the opposite of that. She's like me, where I can talk and work at the same time and keep moving, like the parallel you made to Miles O'Brien, always working and talking and moving at the same time.
Yeah. And then also what you were saying with Adira, I've been a little harsh on the character Adira, but just now, as you were speaking and thinking about like when people say what characters, they glommed onto when they first started watching, I know so many people that was like, I saw myself in Wesley Crusher. Mm-hmm. Now, I never did. Like, it just, I don't know. I don't associate with kids. It's just not me. I must be an old soul. But thinking about Adira's growth in Discovery, all 5 seasons, but specifically this one of being pushed to be on the bridge and, being their own person without gray, and doing more, as Tilly suggests. You can do more and, trust yourself. And I'm sure that Erigah has been that beacon of, I can recognize myself in them as that younger aged, and so I'm going to just say, you know what, Erigah is good for the show. I know that they are. And this episode seemed to sort of formalize all of that and solidify their growth since meeting them.
I'm with you. I am relating more to her situation more than
their
ever.
situation.
Like when they're on the bridge and Raynar's like, no time like the present now, and just kind of pushing them right into it. So yeah.
Well, our final topic for this section is, I will do anything for love, including that. And we are, of course, talking about Mal and Locke and the extreme measures that they took to protect each other this week. Guys, we were talking, Kevin, you were talking earlier about like relationships. There might not be a stronger relationship in Star Trek since maybe Riker and Troy. And I'm kind of wondering if it's even stronger than that, because these guys, I mean, they literally live for each other.
So I brought up the issue of the lack of like really good romance in Star Trek. I'm not calling this a good romance, but it is showing that there is something really strong there, and they're doing it in a short amount of time, which is quite amazing, to be honest with you. And you're finding these people obviously villainous in the beginning, and you're now cheering them on, and you're seeing how Mal is reacting, like in the picture you hear on the screen after what happened to Locke. And what Locke says to her before, everything. You're seeing a really good, I'm going to call love between these two to showcase what's going to happen next. And I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with Mal in this relationship, and if we're going to see Locke again.
Amy?
This little love story reminds me of so many like 80s hair rock love songs, ballads. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about, Amy.
Thank you. Right? If you know what I'm talking about, 80s power ballads, this is their story, because they're going up against it all. Not to say
deeper the love. The White Snake there for you. Sorry.
Oh my gosh, there's like so many songs. I've got one going through my mind.
I will do anything,
thank you,
but I won't do that.
Living on the Edge. Oh, dude.
Living on a Prayer.
Yeah, living on. Yeah.
Bon
Anyways,
Jovi. Yep.
Yes, Bon Jovi. That's the one. So and you're right. It's been developed very quickly, and I love it. I don't think it's necessarily a healthy relationship, but it is definitely true. And when Mal at the end just spewed information, oh my gosh, that threw me. I was completely surprised, because in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, well, she'll come around and work with Book and Burnham. And no, that I shocked. So I applaud the writers for shocking me and spinning that and twisting it. And I am very intrigued to see, what are they going to do with her? Like, I knew their love was good, but when she's like showing that they're married, it just, took it to a whole nother level.
I rewatched the scene when they do the flashback and she's making the deal and he's part of the deal. And she sees something in him, like, okay, I'm going to be able to manipulate this guy. But I think she starts to fall for him when he's like going to like handcuff her. And then like the Breen walk by, and then like he doesn't do what he's supposed to do. And she kind of goes, oh, and smart too, or something like that.
Yes,
I'm if I'm remembering correctly, that's when she goes, wow, I think I actually like this guy now. There's just certain, you see it in movies, you see it in videos where there's just something that happens and like, okay, maybe I wasn't supposed to like this guy, but this woman, and they do something and you're like, okay, I'm kind of hot for them now.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Haley? What do you think their relationship?
It's interesting because I did think, like this was definitely something she's been on her own. She's used to doing what she needs to do to survive, being, this courier, so to speak. And so at the end to see that, she and him, they both really do have these strong feelings for each other, is really lovely to see. And I think, it is genuine. They've been on the run. They've been being chased together. But it's this, like you said, Amy, what is going to happen? They are not going to accept her because she's not Brain. And what's going to happen to her? I definitely, when Book comes down and meets them at sick bay right there when they're going to transport him aboard, and he's like, let me talk to her, and I'm like, oh please, bruh, no, dude, like she ain't going to talk to you. Like, Nan brings it up, she was going to blow you up. Oh, I was getting through to her, and I'm like, no you weren't. No you were not. She did not care for you at all. She's not going to talk to you. You're not going to be of any help. Go do something else, Book. Like the fact that I wasn't surprised that she, was like, I will go with you guys. Because, as we find out at the end of the episode, this progenitor technology, it creates life, but it could potentially bring someone back. Now, this throws them the whole conundrum of, is it really them if you bring them back? Because, we all know from many other things, well, it's not really them that's coming back. It's a form of them, but it's a different form of them. And, anyway. And so it's kind of not surprising because I think she's still very angry. I think there's some anger there that, not necessarily towards Starfleet, but towards people who actually want to help. And whatever that is for her, I don't know. But she's definitely slow to trust. I think that she looks at the situation that she could potentially manipulate the Breen into what she wants because she's had past dealings with them as a courier. So I think there's that aspect of that relationship there. I was upset that she said, hey, like I know where to go, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know necessarily if all these puzzle pieces they've been putting together are needed or if that just helps them. I don't know. Anyway, but it's definitely going to make it very, very interesting to see what happens at the end. I don't think that they would leave it that Locke stays dead, though.
I think that's going to be tying in this stuff that's been going on with Culber too, and some of the things he's been dealing with the season. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to be very interesting. But you know what, guys? We're actually going to be talking a little bit more about Maul and Locke as we teleport into our next away mission. It is, of course, time for the second away mission, which means we're going to be talking the Ready Room, of course, hosted by Wil Wheaton. And he had some very special guests on this week, as he had the actors who play Maul and Locke, Elias Tofix, and Eve Harlow. And it was an interesting conversation. Again, a condensed version of the Ready Room, a little bit under 14 minutes, but it was interesting to get their take on how they call themselves the Bonnie and Clyde of Star Trek. What did you guys pull from this week's Ready Room? Haley, I'm going to start with you.
I was actually, this is her first introduction for Eve to Star Trek. Now I need to have to go back and watch the preview, like the very first season, because I'm like, oh, he was already in this show. All right, cool. I wasn't paying attention, obviously. But again, he's under all these prosthetics. And I think it was interesting to hear from yet another person who's being told, do more, bigger, because you are having to act under so much prosthetics that, the things that we use with our face, our emotions, and things don't come out when you're under all that makeup. So, yeah.
Kevin, what about you? Anything in particular stand out from the Ready Room this week?
Yeah, definitely. Elias brought it up. And I thought it was cool. And obviously they showed the first season character that he was, and he'd be interested in coming back, and they brought him back. But what I thought was interesting is he mentioned he was used to playing the Heavy, which is the villain. He gets villainous roles. And when he started talking about how what was really cool about doing this episode the season of Discovery was that usually you get backstories on villains, and it gives them a little idea on their motive, but you don't always get a chance to act that out. Like a little prequel setup to what they did in this season of Discovery for the characters. Usually you get the good guys that are front and center talking about what they did, and it's mentioned in a few lines. And so I thought it was cool that he talked about it, and Eve expanded on that a little bit about how they got to actually see how their relationship developed, and you got that backstory. And I thought that was really, really cool. And I also like too how they got the roles. And he was saying, "Yeah, I just I filmed the audition reel and I got the part." And Elias was threw his hat in the ring after he did the first season, and that he got contacted. They said, "Hey, we think we've got a role for you." And then you talked about, of course, the process of you touched on acting on with under the makeup and stuff, which is cool.
Amy?
Yeah, I too was surprised that he was in season 1. I was super excited to see that. I'm like, gosh darn it, why did we not talk about that? And I was secretly waiting for Eve Harlow to just sort of mention that she went on the Star Trek cruise, because she went there and we had no idea what it was, because the cruise was way before Discovery aired. So she was on the cruise and I saw her, but we just didn't know who she was. So there was no connection. And now to see her on the Ready Room, and I'm like, oh, I could have, would have, should have. But I like that they got their little mugs. They were so cute about that.
I did want to mention, I want to give love to the segment of the prop makers and how they said this was a very prop heavy season for obvious reasons, and how they were showing all the parts that were the clues that they were picking up. And I thought that was really cool.
Thing.
Yeah. And I just thought that was a really cool little segment there. But I did want to ask you guys something. I was listening to one of the podcasts when I was in Australia, you guys, one of the episodes that you were doing, and you mentioned the Ready Room is shorter now. And and I was wondering what was the reason for this? Do you guys know? Because it used to be half hour, now they're like 15 minutes. Is it a money thing, Amy? Is that what it is?
Budget cuts.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. All right. It was nice to see them on the couch with, in the same room with Will too, not just be on a screen going for. So I'm hoping that they will become fan favorites at upcoming Star Trek events. So maybe Eve will probably go on the cruise again next year, and everyone will know who she is.
Exactly.
There you go. Well, guys, with that, we are going to move on. It is time to get things a little bit to a close. We're going to intercept some subspace signals. Okay, guys, and of course, one of the first signals we always pick up as we close out the show is the Orb of Prophecy. And this week we did get a little bit of a preview of the next episode, Labyrinths. There's something about this. I just got to say this. You feel like she looks too friendly. She might actually be like the librarian from hell.
It reminded me a little bit of Arsenal of Freedom from TNG, with the weapons that they were trying to sell on that planet, and there was that automated thing. And then I started thinking about it would be really funny. In the back of my mind, I was thinking, whatever this place of artifacts is, do they have a wing of try not to be a Kivas Faggio?
Now, I just want to point out in this one picture I have up for those of you watching on our YouTube channel, we talked about this a couple weeks ago when they talked about the costuming. You can really see the detail in that Breen costume here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like when you had that picture of Maul leaning over Locke's dead body, and like the green stripes in his uniform that's on the diagonal to highlight the Breen. Attention to detail.
Yeah, very much so. And Burnham looks good in the library. What can we say? So
hold on. I think if you look closely at that picture, I think I see D&D, a D&D book there. I think, yeah, there is.
Yeah.
I see a couple of Guinness Book of World Records.
there might be a couple of books on the littles in there.
Yeah.
Maybe a David Mack and Dayton Ward books. So I thought I was very interested because remember in season 3, we had the seed ship that was taking, and had seeds to preserve them. And we're getting the same thing. Now, instead of seeds, we've got books and literature, and it's being accumulated and is out there and just floating around. I think it's pretty awesome. And I like the conservation tone that Discovery keeps bringing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I think that's a great point, Amy. But as we wind down this episode too, the Orb Prophecy just wants to remind us that, we do have Starfleet Academy coming, which has been a big topic of conversation this season with Discovery. It's the Section 31 film, which is, I believe I have read is wrapped filming. So looking forward to seeing what that could be. Lower Decks going to hit its final season later on. And of course, returning in 2025, the 3rd season of Strange New Worlds, which, yes, we are incredibly excited about. We got a 2nd season of Star Trek Prodigy sometime on Netflix. And you never know, is there still a legacy in the works, or what is going on with Trek? It's an interesting time as other rumors of what might happen to Paramount are kind of taking control of that situation, which we are watching that closely to when we have a little bit more confirmation of things before we go full deep dive into that. But you have been listening to the Union Federation podcast here exclusively on the Fandom Podcast Network and the BQN networks. We are so thankful for all you listeners. And of course, with the Fandom Podcast Network, you can find all things going on in fandom. Of course, that's where Kevin and I kind of hang out. And Kevin, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on X, Instagram, Threads, Letterboxd at Spartan_Phoenix. And of course, you can find me in the Union Federation Facebook group. And also, I'm also on Facebook as well. So, yeah.
And Haley, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram and Blue Sky. I like that I'm the only one in this group that's on Blue Sky. At Trekkie01D.
Of course, you can find me, Kyle, on Twitter/X at AKyleW. You can also find me on Discord at AKyleW.
I'm on Discord too. Sorry, I forgot to mention that.
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at AKyleFandom, and you can find me on Letterboxd at KSport16. And of course, too, we have the BQN network, and we have the queen of the BQN assimilating everything out there. What is going on with BQN, and where can people find you on social media?
Well, you can find us on BQN at BQN Podcasts pretty much everywhere. Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram. I'm falling back from social media, but Discord, it's my new favorite place. So find me there, Amy Nelson 522.
There you go. Amy, I guess got to bring up real quick too. You guys are doing something with BQN with books too? Are you starting your own library?
Well, yes. Labyrinths of the Mind is our first book. No, we have Peter from, he's done the online book club on Twitter or X, and he's doing a complimentary podcast to go with that. So he's still continuing the online discussion, but then's going to have a podcast. So, and he's brought that on to BQN. So we're very happy to be adding beta canon to our canon over at BQN.
And of course, too, this has been the Union Federation podcast covering all things this final season of Star Trek Discovery. You can find the Union Federation podcast on the Fandom Podcast Network's YouTube channel. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a share. You can see the video of this podcast. If you want to listen to the audio, you can find it on all the major feed providers out there, whether it's Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com, which is our home of our master feed on here at the Fandom Podcast Network, or Spotify, iTunes, all your major podcast catchers out there. You can Find the Union Federation podcast. And of course, too, we have just finished talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 5, Episode 7, Erigah. It has been a pleasure to finally have the crew completely together. We have for the first time this season. Hopefully, we will be together for the rest of this fabulous finale season of Star Trek Discovery and beyond. But you know what, guys, it's a pleasure. I can't do this without you. You guys are what make the show, as well as our wonderful listeners, both on the Fandom Podcast Network and on the BQN Network. We can't thank you enough. Until next time, though, guys, we are the weirdest ship in the fleet. Live long and prosper, and hailing frequencies are now closed.